Right, in this assignment, what you're going to be doing is writing an exponential equation for a situation where we're talking about percent growth or decay. So if we're talking about percent growth, what we mean is that a population or a group or whatever initial value we had grows by a certain percentage, like let's say it grows by 6%, or decays by some percentage, like maybe it decays by 10% each growth cycle. And so what we want to do is we want to write an equation for the exponential function that uses that percentage. So there are 4 steps to this. First thing you're going to do is take the percent growth or decay and convert that to a decimal. Next, what you want to do is determine if this situation calls for growth or decay. It may straight up tell you in the situation. You may have to interpret what's going on. Is my initial value growing or shrinking? Then take the number 1, which represents no growth, like holding steady, and then you want to add the decimal value of that percentage if it's growth, or if it's decay, you subtract that decimal value from 1. And then whatever number you use, or number you get from that, rather, you use as the base for the equation. So let's look. Remember, base means growth factor in this case. So example 1, write an exponential equation with the following properties. We have an initial value of 400, and it's growing by 32%. So our first step is to take this percentage and convert it to a decimal. We know that to convert a decimal or a percentage to decimal, you divide by 100, and so that percent growth as a decimal is 0.32. Now what we're going to do is take that and subtract it from 1, or excuse me, add it to 1, because this is percent growth. So if it's growth, I'm going to take the number 1 and add, because it's growth, that decimal to that, and then use that number as my base. So my base will be 1 plus 0.32, and I can simplify that down, and so my equation would be y equals 400, my initial value, times 1.32, my base, after I factor in what this percent growth means, and then raised to the x power, and x tells us how many growth cycles are happening. We can also do this for decay. So in example 2, we have an initial value of 15 and a percent decay of 5. So I need to convert that percentage to a decimal. 5 divided by 100 is 0.05. This is decay, so I'm going to take 1 minus 0.05. And when I do that, 1 minus 0.05 is going to be 0.95. And so my equation is y equals the initial value times my base that I found from subtracting, because it's decay, this from 1. And so there is my equation. So you're going to be writing these equations. Later on, I'm going to ask you to do this from a word problem, which means you'll have to use the context of the problem to determine if it's decay or growth. Look for words like increases or decreases, inflates, deflates, words like that that are going to indicate whether this is growth or decay. And then you can write an equation. And then you can also use what we know about evaluation to solve further problems with this. So for instance, if I want to know what I'm going to be left with after 3 growth cycles of 5% decay, all I have to do is plug a 3 in for x, evaluate this just like we did in the last quiz cycle, and that will tell you what your new value is. So again, convert the percentage to a decimal, add or subtract depending on if it's growth or decay from 1, and use that as your base. And you will be using this information basically for the rest of this quiz cycle. Is all just going to be practice with word problems, with different examples, all kinds of things that you may encounter. Good luck.